first of the VR, or Screen Schools VR, daily panel talks. My name is Dan Bartlett. I am Programme Director from London College of Communication, and I'm also chairing the talks every day. And with me today is David Smith, who's from Digital Creativity Lab, which is part of the university. Yeah. Today's topic is VR broadcasting and the changing face of journalism. And what's very interesting about this is both of us got together and went, neither of us are kind of directly working in journalism, but are working with journalists in one way or another, whether it be through technology or whether it be through like research interests or project interests from students. So it's straight away very interesting. There's lots of stuff colliding within this field. So the way we wanted to start it, first of all, these are completely informal. It's not about waiting to the end for a Q&A session or anything like that. If you want to say something, just kind of say it, throw it out there, and we can use that as part of that dialogue, part of that discussion or possibly debate. Generally with VR, things turn into a debate quite quickly. But yeah, just bring your ideas forward straight away. But I think what we want to start with is just an introduction to us actually, what we do and how that is relevant to this discussion. So over to you, David.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm David Smith and I'm a researcher in the Digital Creativity Lab, which is part of the University of London. And the Digital Creativity Lab in general focuses on games and storytelling and where the convergence is. My particular research area is in emerging broadcast technologies. So I work on projects with BBC and the department looking at new technologies which can inform and alter broadcast. So the things I've been looking at are, alongside VR, volumetric filmmaking, interactive storytelling such as object-based media, render engine technology, and what I look at is both how these technologies inform the form of storytelling in broadcasting.
As I said, I'm Dan Bartlett. I'm a Programme Director from London College of Communication, part of the University of the Arts London. The programme that I head up is Moving Image and Digital Arts, which now includes a master's degree in virtual reality, which started this year, and we are just nearing the completion of our development for a bachelor's degree in virtual reality. Within that programme as well, we have courses in animation and games design, visual effects, 3D computer animation, so it's very much geared towards a very specific kind of media creation. And in the development of those courses, and particularly with VR, we came to understand that there's a very intrinsic relationship that exists between VR and other mediums, that it's both a technology and a practice at the same time, and there's lots of convergence that's happening between all of them. Particularly as the VR curriculum that we've developed has gone from being an abstract concept to something that's very physical, and we have students in the building, with project ideas, with research interests right now. What we're seeing is lots of supplementary practices kind of coming into this space. So doc filmmaking, film and television are taking interest, photography, but also games. This was something that I personally didn't really see coming at all. It's how important games is within virtual reality, even for filmmakers. So it's kind of an interesting thing that's happening, within those courses right now, and it's something that it's a discovery process, I think, that's happening for researchers. We have one PhD researcher at the moment, the PhD candidate seeking virtual technologies, all the way down to students who are coming in onto bachelor's degrees that have that interest in virtual technology. So we're seeing this kind of full spectrum together. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is what have you seen so far? And I don't want to ask this in terms of what's the best thing you've seen, but good and bad. Where have you seen VR technologies being used right now within broadcast? And let's say broadcast journalism, to keep it loose.
It's a good question. I think that some of the for me the interesting things, some of the stuff that the Guardian's doing in their VR lab is very interesting pieces. What I find least interesting is the 360 camera in a space and just sitting it there and not considering the journalism practice, the storytelling practice. I think one thing that VR does do is that it situates people within a space, and that changes how the stories go. And I think what the Guardian's done is similar. And there are other examples as well. It's how to actually use that as a new form for telling stories. And I think as opposed to just being an eye on the wall, let's just place it in the space and let the story unfold itself. So for me, I think the exciting thing is the ones which actually look at the new forms of storytelling that are enabled through that technology.
Yeah, there's so you're talking about the Guardian's isolation piece that it's that kind of static, slightly rigid thing. There are some good things happening. That's a great piece of storytelling. What I find interesting about that though is it's the opposite to this in that you can go and buy in PC or Argos. It's this accessible thing. You can just pick it up and attempt to do something that's not immersive or that doesn't tell a story. But then you've got Pioneer Arena, which is intense in the way it tells narrative in VR, but it's not accessible at all. You need 25 square meters of gravel floor and capture facilities and high, head-mounted displays. So it's a very inaccessible storytelling. But there is stuff kind of out there at the moment. People are beginning to use accessible items to create more images.
Yeah, and I think that from a technology perspective, that accessibility is coming on. I mean, I don't know if you know of DeathKit, which is James George's thing for the documentary Clouds, which came out a long time ago, and that now has become quite an accessible way of doing quite simple fundamental filmmaking. And I think that these type of technologies are emerging, and they are becoming more compact. And I think where we are at the moment is an interesting space of the more professional kind of constructs of narrative will become more accessible to journalists and will become more accessible to people who are from a research lab with funding or funded by Google, for example. So I think that's where the interest at the moment is how the accessibility of the technology will enable more of these things to be taught.
I think it's really interesting you kind of gone back to narrative again, because that was one of the first things as someone who had to look at VR as a technology and as a practice, and then find a way to turn both of those into a curriculum and give it form. One of the first things I realised is that the language of film doesn't apply in virtual reality. Like a lot of the rules just kind of peel away, and they're not as effective or not as kind of efficient in the delivery. And yet, that's fallen apart. But there's not many examples of people bringing it back together or re-establishing a language that is film and VR, or even just a language for VR. There's lots of gaps.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely true. And I think that one of the research areas that I was looking at was in interactivity in filmmaking. They went out and talked to a lot of interactive filmmakers, and we find the same thing. There's crossover between the interactive space and the VR space. You find that people working in interactive forms are tending to move towards VR or have explored VR, and what you find is that they will look at other disciplines for inspiration. So they look at immersive theatre, for example. People like Kunstdruck are innovators in VR because they're innovators in space, and I think that's one of the things that we find with VR is that when moving image came in, time was introduced as a medium. And now with VR we've got space that's being created. And how do people engage with space and how do we tell stories through space? It's a different language, and it's something that will be explored and is being explored. And I think from an education point of view, how that language becomes a kind of vocabulary for VR.
It's a huge challenge. It's what I think, as someone who's coming from, so my background is actually in animation. That's kind of my passion and the thing that I spend a lot of time teaching as well as kind of the more tech-heavy stuff. But one of the things I find in terms of traditional film language is that with a bachelor's degree student, 3 years is how long it takes to help them understand the language of a flat space. Just this rectangle of understand things like composition and eye direction and flowing and rhythm. That's a really difficult thing to do, and that is just a square effectively or a rectangle. So to take those principles and translate that into a fully realised space, it's a huge challenge, a huge undertaking. there's loads of examples of people who have attempted to navigate that and attempted to build film language. Baobab Studios produced some really good animations and some tests and some kind of more narrative-led stuff where they are just using 3D animation, but that's almost a byproduct of what they're really trying to do, which is to establish ways to guide a viewer and guide an individual through a virtual space and hold their focus in specific places within that space at specific times. So things like using immersive sound, using eye direction is a really great one. Characters, having the character tell you where to look by guiding you that way. These are really important things that they're beginning to test. And what's nice about that is what's happening with virtual reality is we're learning the same way we learn film, as we are watching others and taking the best of what they do. We sort of boil it down to its purest form, take that element out and begin to apply it to other stuff. But it's a much more complex kind of process. Do you think that there's, in terms of like the balance of good and bad, because this is another thing that comes up in discussion with virtual technologies, and possibly all technology, someone always gets out a graph and says that we were here and now we're here. And there's always like a flow chart of some kind of the public consensus of this is tech. In terms of the stuff that's being made now with narratives and with, particularly broadcast VR, where do you think we are? Are we in a period where there's more good stuff happening than bad? Is there a drought? Someone said to me the other day.
I think there's a lot of good stuff and interesting stuff being produced, but I think it's quite difficult to find them. I think that it's potentially, for me, I think distribution is one of the big difficulties beyond your 360 video and somebody doing it on their smartphone or potentially a Google Cardboard, maybe a daydream if they're feeling like they're really into VR. But the level of people who actually have high-end devices, who have HTC Vives, for example, and can then find these things beyond going into Steam. I think there's still a lot to be done there to really source out the interesting examples of
It's a challenge. I'd like to know, can anyone just tell me, where do you see VR stuff? Has anyone got a particular place that they go? Yeah. Isn't that just such a strange kind of, it's almost like a paradox, isn't it? You have to go to a physical place to see a non-physical piece of content. But yeah, I think you're right, it's like that accessibility, isn't it? And where can you go where you can consistently engage with content?
I guess a good question that I thought was, is it necessary in journalism? Journalism is, it tries to be, what's the word where it's not going for specific truth, it's going for many truths. Which obviously, well, in my eyes, journalism can never be, will always be. And so is VR necessary in that you want the viewer to look at a certain thing. So therefore the thing behind them, forget about it for now, you need to look at this. So therefore is VR really necessary in journalism when you've got a specific point to put across?
I think it depends. Journalism's a thing, so I think it depends on what you're specifically trying to do. If you're trying to transport someone into a place that they wouldn't be able to access, for example, so going into a war zone and actually feeling that in a really immersive way, it's an extremely powerful thing that we can't. There are obviously ways to create extremely powerful flat video, but I think one thing that does have is that sense of immersion presence, and I think that actually transforming someone into a space is something that journalism could really use to an extremely powerful.
Yeah, I think there's journalism as a principle, it has there's a responsibility there. It has always been there. There's a responsibility. And I think that this VR allows us to take that responsibility to the next level in effectively kind of combating what we are seeing in the last 20 years, 25 years, which is the process of taking very specific set perspectives and not having an impartial rationale behind that perspective. The war zone's a great example. Yes, we see conflict, but we see it from the perspective of that set journalist, how they wish us to see it. Somebody else is shooting it in a very different way for a very different reason. And And a device as crude as it is, a device like that removes that opportunity because it effectively just captures that space. I mean, even now, the conversation we're having, there is no perspective here. It is just a record of what happened right now in this room without any opportunity to manipulate. And the manipulation of that device is still very inaccessible. It's not something that most people can do. By comparison, shooting standard video, that flat image can now be shot, edited, composited, and then shared on a phone. And shared to a global audience. We're not there yet. These devices, I don't want to say pure, but they're simplified enough that it doesn't allow that level of manipulation to take place.
That's quite an interesting philosophical point in the sense of you're saying that because there's no language of editing or no language of post-production for at the moment it is an observation mechanism. It's a mechanism of just observing a space and recording that space. There's no potential for manipulation.
Yeah.
So do you feel that as that vocabulary does establish itself and there is a way to say, well, let's focus over here, do you think that will in some way destroy the purity of the medium?
As with all mediums, its purity will be lost over time. Yeah, I think it's just a given. I don't want to say that it's a race against time. I don't think we should look at it like that. I think we are at a point where it's young enough that we can use it positively now, before the technology catches up with the user. Because at the moment it's the other way around. We have the technology, or at least in the last 10 years, the tech exists, but no one really knew what to do with it or knew how to apply it. It wasn't until companies like GoPro, as an example, began to package it and mass produce it, that it's become something that we can start to at least experiment with and begin to understand. And I think we're going to see the same with the bigger devices as well.
Can I just ask, so I work with David at DC Labs and I train as a journalist, and when I train as a journalist, obviously there's a code of conduct and there are particular things that you do and don't do with journalism. And I think that VR are we psychologically prepared, and what are our boundaries in terms of as journalists, what you can and can't immerse somebody in, because obviously that editorial process is missing, or it's compromised or it's extended to an extent.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. Now, I was watching, it was someone from BBC R&D giving a talk about VR in journalism, and somebody asked a question about the ethical implications of that, and it was quite interesting in response because she said actually the ethics section of that talk was removed because it felt that was the least interesting part, because they felt that newsrooms are already equipped with ethical considerations that they will be able to do that, and the only thing that they felt that was new was how it may affect the audience being immersed in space, as opposed to the content that is being created by the newsroom.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I agree with that. I think that that's a quite limited way of looking at it. I certainly agree that we don't really know what it would be like to actually transport someone and let them be in a war zone. If you have full volumetric filmmaking and you have things like that's quite a strange experience. And so I think from a presentation level, there are certainly ethical implications. I think from an editorial or perspective level, I'm not sure about that. I think that's something that newsrooms will have to consider. But at the moment, as I said, there is a kind of consensus that they're aware of this enough that it can just self-regulate. And I don't know if that's correct.
If anyone does. I think we're at a point where we have to look at this from the perspective of every technological jump that we have taken, and that question has come up every time, and how we treat it every time. And one of the things that fascinates me about VR is the process of conversion on contact, that most people aren't prepared for it, and when that first time that they put a headset on, the first time they experience something, but within minutes, from my experience, it's an age thing. The younger you are, the faster you convert. Which is probably true of everything actually in life. But it's once you have begun to experience stuff in virtual reality, you are able to re-establish that set of boundaries. Full immersion, despite our greatest fears, does not exist. There is no such thing yet. And I think we are a very, very long way from having that. So the line is still there. The other thing is the assumption that the fourth wall no longer exists. It absolutely does. You know, it really is there. It's good. We're going to have to get to a point where we are doing full volumetric, you know, true. Because this is the thing. This is not true virtual reality. This is just another screen. It just happens to be in a headset. True virtual reality may take that to another level, but that's 30 years away, easily 30 years away before we're at that point. So I do agree with you. I think we have to be aware of that, and I think we still have to have that conversation about the ethics of what we're doing, but not do it in a fearful manner, do it in the same rational way. But again, I think it's also, I do see this as a very kind of forceful but pure reaction to the erosion of those ethics. I think, you know, if we were to do just a census of how closely are you know, newsrooms around the world following that code, really, and is this a slightly ham-fisted reaction to that? We now just capture stuff without perspective, without adjustment, or at least without ready adjustment. A good example actually is go to 2011. The late 2011, 2012, but there were riots in London, and it was an interesting one because it was a riot. It was kind of the first very British riot entirely constructed through a social media process. You know, there was a series. It was it was BlackBerry, wasn't it? BlackBerry Messenger was the method by which communication happened to organise that riot. But what was interesting about it is the reality of what happened on the street was so different from what was recorded, from what was captured. And there is footage, very grainy, awful footage from people's mobile phones showing journalists and showing camera operators lining up and effectively prepping protesters to go and break stuff. Now, I think the public perspective and the public opinion and the reaction to those series of events make them very, very different if one of those devices had just been, put in the street and recorded as it happened. We may have perceived it to be different, and our reaction to it may have been different. At least our instant reaction to what's happened.
I think to me, it's a weird idea to think that this is what did you call it? Clean. Pure. It's such a weird idea. I mean, in the you just do different techniques. So, for instance, the journalist saying, right, you're going to throw that brick at that window and make those shoes. Like, you just do different techniques. So the journalist goes, okay, wait there for 30 seconds, I'll run behind that then go. And therefore you won't be able to see that part. You cut that part out. To me, this is just another eye. If you look at film as in film is a single perspective. Film is a recreation of dreams of us and whatever. It's exactly the same language from going from flatty film to going for 360. But it's just recreating how we see, how we cut from here to there or whatever. I guess I just see it as the same thing really. Like I don't see it as a pure perspective at all. I just see it as really doing bad with words today, but there's just as objective as a normal single camera.
I think it can be that the editorial, when you stop is definitely part of that process. I think it's just about the accessibility of how that image is manipulated once it's been produced. Because that's what we have. We're at a point in time where the artifact of our recording, a physical thing, can be changed so quickly. And what genuinely terrifies me, is real-time manipulation that we are able to do. I saw some very interesting experiments at GDC, it's a Games Developers Conference in San Francisco this year, where they were doing real-time video. Then they were tracking that in real time and then doing face replacement in real time. That's terrifying. And that's not a post-production process, that is a real-time process. And it was done through a computer that is off the shelf. It's just that having the right software to process the imagery. And it's that, so that's something we need to be very aware of. This, because of its inaccessibility, because it's so new and so fresh, we just don't have that knowledge yet to begin that process of making it less pure.
Yeah, and I agree with you from a research perspective. I mean, real-time post-production is something that I'm extremely interested in. Even though you say it's terrifying, I mean, it is terrifying. The ethical implications that come out of that are insane. Like the kind of face replacement or kind of deep fakes, as they're being called, yeah. And it is getting to the point, and it's not that far off where that sort of real-time render engine technology is getting to the point where it's almost photorealistic, and then we're in a different space where we're not recording, we're generating, we're only generating stuff, and that's a scary space to be in. We're not there yet, but that is coming through, and I think that is correct that at the moment this is less manipulative than what we have with but I do agree with you in the sense that there is still ample opportunity for manipulation. That isn't the case of because we have 360 therefore we've removed any kind of dissolvement of the purity. It's I mean, in terms of the riots, I think for me the citizen journalism is an interesting thing, and it's 360 cameras in the hands of citizen journalists take upon that. And the difference, as there always been, between a guy with a smartphone putting it on Facebook Live as opposed to the BBC reports on the differences. And what differences do we get of the guy with his fusion camera and putting it on Facebook Live compared to the BBC report? So I think
yeah. And then what's kind of great about this is that it is becoming more accessible. You know, I did even today. I toyed this morning with the idea of shall I, as opposed to a recording, shall I just do this? And there was no technical barriers. I mean, the cable and the laptop's in my bag. I could have done it if I wanted to, and I chose not to. In fact, I chose not to so that I had editorial control over the artifact, and that I could do something with it at the end. But I could have very purely just gone straight to YouTube and with the right audience space there, taking this space and offered it to a much wider group of people. And I think there's something kind of nice about that. Basically, citizen journalism, you can just pass that opportunity out to people and let them capture it. What it provides us with is a unique opportunity though, because if we take multiple 360 captures, if we could take 3 sets of 360 captures in this room at once, we could theoretically completely rebuild the space. There'd be enough data there to do a full track, like a complete capture track of all those individual pieces, and then rebuild that space, and allows people to become even more immersed in the events that happen. And I think that's the next stage of this. Is we're in an age of connectivity where we're not just generating our own data and our own artifacts, but we are very open to and very willing to take other people's data and take other people's artifacts and use it to our own ends. So the process of sharing 360 footage and sharing these captures, I think that's the direction it's going to go in terms of individuals' participation in journalism, taking other people's work, bringing it together and recreating spaces. And I think we'll see it. In fact, I would go as far as the next kind of large political gathering, I think you'll see people taking each other's 360 footage.
And this is the problem with journalism, because obviously you get paid news outlets. You get news outlets that rely on the income from having the best footage, from having the best editorial angle, from having the best interviews. And that's where, while ground roots journalism and tech is going to grow and is going to improve, what will those news outlets do to that? And that's where you do get people creating news so that they have a different
think we're in a transition though. I think you're absolutely right in terms of it is about the clicks, and it has been for over a decade now. Actually, that the focus is how many times can you get a unique engagement in a space. But I think we're actually transitioning away from that. I think we're about to move into, as opposed to clicks, but longevity of connection. How long do you stay with us for? How long do you engage with the stream for? Twitch is a great example of the monetization of streamed information as opposed to individual unique hits. I think there's an opportunity for established broadcasters to do something here. Like an example being, if you had someone like the BBC or Channel 4 or Al Jazeera say that this event happened, we know the participants were there with 360 cameras. Give us your data and we will rebuild it. We'll take everything you captured and we will build that as a complete space that you can then go back and engage immersively. People would have the faith in the media, because that's what's under attack, is faith in the media. Absolutely. The faith would be partially restored because it was the participants that provided the data. They provided the information. And then the value of it, the commercial value of it, is in the length of stream. If it's a 3-4 hour event that took place, an inauguration, a protest, whatever it might be, to have people join that space, return to it, and see it. I don't want to keep using the word pure, but to see it unedited, a composite of people's perspectives. I think there's something there. There's definitely power.
It's quite It's quite a dangerous idea to think that anything could ever be sort of pure. Again, in my eyes, nothing could ever be pure as you're experiencing something from a single eye. Whatever you're experiencing, you're turning around and you miss whatever's there, and yada yada yada. And even if you give all this footage to one organisation, then that organisation pushes whatever else from their editorial perspective. I think it's not, to me, a great idea. So if you go from photography, first you get the photograph and you think, wow, there's truth there, there's a truth there, and then sort of you can broaden out to film, so wow, there's even more truth there, and 360, like, wow, we've got everything there, everything 360 we can all around, just that idea that solidifies truth to me doesn't make sense in that it can never be a multiple perspective when it's only ever a single perspective. So I guess, just the idea of teaching that, telling that.
I don't think it's about having it's not about absolutes. I don't think it's that something is pure or not, or pure or true or not true. I think it's just about having a sense of agency and being able to move towards it. And it kind of goes back to something we talked about earlier, which was games. That game engines and real-time rendering is allowing us to have a little bit more agency in the way we engage with stuff. Virtual production as a cinematic process is part of that. So the ability to take a LiDAR scan, like a physical scan of a space, put that into a game engine, and then move through that space at will in order to control shots and to control the behaviour of elements within it. That's something that is absolutely applicable to broadcast journalism. We could do that. We could capture that space and say, look, here it is. This is what was recorded, but we're not gonna do what we're doing here, which is to sit you in the middle. Before anyone turned up, there was a big circle of chairs here. And I thought, wouldn't that be awful and kind of funny just to put the camera right in the middle and have like a weird circular discussion? But we're not going to do that. What instead we're going to do is give you a physical space that you can move in at will and control it temporally as well. To go, if you see it one way, rewind, move to a different space, and watch it back again, see it from a new perspective, like you do an open world game. And I think games are leading the way in that we're seeing the fight back. The death online gaming is actually under serious threat right now because people are realizing that the technology we have, the graphics technology, allows for a level of immersion where people just want to walk through a space. I don't know if any of you are kind of games fans, like Red Dead Redemption 2 was launched in the last 2 weeks. The appeal of that game is it's not being a cowboy, it's being in the Old West. That's the appeal, is to move through a space at will and experience the weather and experience the way light captures things. And it's that same urge that we can bring into journalism and give people a level of control.
Just because it's cool?
No, because I think people want to experience. They want to go somewhere they've never been.
It's so interesting. Everything that you're saying is really, really interesting. But the thing that I keep thinking about is kind of when you think of VR in games, feature films, museums, you know, I mean, kind of like it's kind of like on the level of kind of like entertainment and escapism. That's really what it's about. It's about escaping into other worlds. And you kept saying war. You kept saying war. You know, how exciting to be like in the middle of a war zone. Like, I think that's really, really like not attractive or interesting or, you know, kind of like, you know, I think there's something about like news coverage like over the last 10 years, you know, where, you know, the rolling news thing, and you know, it's kind of people. I mean, I think in a sense people almost want kind of distance from it rather than wanting to be plunged into the middle of it. And you know, and you know, and obviously, I mean, I'm thinking of space, for instance, because there's some space missions planned, aren't there? And I think space would potentially be really, really interesting and really, really exciting for people to be able to experience that in the way that maybe the person in space is experiencing it. That could be really exciting. War, I think, is kind of like a weird kind of like thing to keep throwing out, because I think that's a really, really disturbing thing. And you know, you can imagine it being used by charities, for instance, like trying to kind of like, you know, I mean, you can imagine, because I don't think it is objective, and I think it is about kind of like, you know, often it is trying to make you feel one way or the other, and there's often a kind of like agenda that's running through the news that, you know, there's a goodie and a baddie, and you know, we're always told stuff, but I don't know, I'm just wondering whether there's it's reality. I mean, that's kind of like the thing, isn't it? Broadcast is reality. All this other stuff that we're talking about is the kind of fantasy worlds almost, or, you know.
I think, yeah, I think, so when you were saying
what's
about...
the purpose of immersion in reality kind of like broadcast then? And I'm just wondering whether there's certain types of broadcast journalism that would be more appropriate for it than others. I don't know, that's the...
Yeah, so some of the examples which The Guardian are putting you in the position of a person, and empathy is something that a lot of people look at, and empathising with a particular viewpoint or a particular character, and that is extremely, as far from objective as you can be. It's like saying, I am going to put you in the position of somebody who is a migrant trying to get to a pallet, and I'm going to allow you to be situated in that and see, in some respect, how the experience is. And I think, in terms of when I was talking about the war zone earlier, it was in context of the ethical implications of that, and whether people actually would want to be placed in a war zone and what that would actually feel like. And it's something that I don't think would be an amazing, engaging experience. I think it's something that would be terrifying and shocking and horrible. But I think that, yeah, so to come back to your point, I think that the subjectivity in it is about when you start to say, well, I'm going to place someone in an extremely subjective viewpoint, much more subjective than you can from I'm going to allow you to see through the eyes of, I'm going to allow you to see through the eyes of this person and how they experience it. And for me, I think that's extremely powerful, but it's very different to this. That is using it as a medium and as a storytelling mechanism, what powerful natures of that are. And I think they're two different things, right? And one requires experimentation, it requires a language, it requires a vocabulary, which we have, and we're exploring again.
I also think it's important to remember that, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think people want to see war, but I also believe that journalists have a responsibility to provide that information and to provide it in a way that is effectively driven, so that it goes beyond what we have seen in the last 20 years, where it has become a form of news has become escapist entertainment. It's progressively moved towards a platform that provides opportunity for people just to not have to worry about the things on their doorstep and to look at someone else's problems briefly. And the agency of the viewer is lost. You know, the line, you know, that line is becoming very, very deep between us and the world that is kind of presented to us. So I think VR still has that opportunity, and VR journalism has an opportunity to kind of thin that line out and actually provide people with something that they do take responsibility for. It doesn't have to be war either. War's just one example. But I think it can give us opportunity to take people to places and build that sense of empathy.
And let's not forget as well that different news outlets have their own, you know, they will always make their own choices about their own audiences. And so you're never going to get every single news outlet adopting every single piece of content as that you're never going to get. If you take something like BBC Newsbeat and they're online, for instance, they're going to deliver a very different type of content to The Guardian, or to and it is down to it's knowing your audience, but it's also knowing what your audience's expectations and limitations are as well, and they are well versed in that in terms of if you take something like Newsbeat, which is very much aimed at young people, you're not going to overload them with content that they're not going to be able to psychologically cope with.
What I'm quite interested in is how it's distributed. So like, if you just go home and turn the news on, watch it with your family and friends, how would VR work? How would you set it to have multiple cameras effectively walk through that space? So how would that be distributed?
Yeah, so we touched earlier on, I think it might have been just before you came, about distribution, but we literally just touched on it. It's a really interesting and difficult problem. Like, at the moment, we're not that sure. I mean, there are high-end devices which are used generally with like your HTC Vive, and you have your handset, so you can have restricted kind of movement in the sense of kind of chair that moves around, I suppose. But in terms of a full exploratory VR, at the moment, there's kind of, if you imagine Ready Player One, that's where people are looking at, that kind of treadmill that people walk on. And I think that distribution is going to be a problem for the next possibly 10 years, maybe longer. I think, and what we're finding is that when people are engaging with VR at the moment, it's at the kind of the free Google glasses that you can get now, or potentially a Google Daydream, and that's very restrictive. I mean, Google Glass has the ability to move around, but you have no ability to engage with that. And you don't even have a handset that you can use to point at things. So distribution is a very difficult challenge.
I think this might sound very unpopular, but I think we have to look at the reality of what the big barrier is, and it's data. Data is the barrier that prevents us from things becoming immediately accessible. Something like the Oculus Go has limited storage space within it. Even our computers are limited in how they not just store data but process that data, which means in order to be able to offer immersive experiences, we need to be able to work with individuals and work with companies who are able to process that data, which means unfortunately there are a very small number of companies that have a foothold on this, Facebook and Google being the two biggest. And until a better way of understanding or even processing data can be developed, then we have to lean on companies who have huge, swaths of server space that allow us to kind of store our stuff and share our content with it. And it's kind of a harsh reality of where we are at the moment, that there is no other way to do it. Facebook VR, Facebook Social, kind of is the best of its format right now. And people don't like that. They don't like the fact that they have to go to this one place in order to be able to engage with content. If you want to watch good 360 video, I'm afraid YouTube has got the foothold on that right now. Good VR games, Steam, that's where you go. And we're a long way from being able to liberate ourselves from those very kind of siphoned platforms, because we just don't have the technology. But we are getting there. We're in this balance, there's kind of these two races happening continually. Users, creators, the individual, and the tech that they're engaged with. And we were at a point where we had loads of ideas and we just didn't have any tech to do it with. Now we've got a fair amount of tech and some great ideas are coming forward, but we're waiting for the tech to catch up with what we want it to be able to do and what we want to be able to create. And it is happening. The technology is incoming. We kind of see the misfires, things like Magic Leap that were announced and everyone got excited and then realised that it didn't exist. Effectively, in the incarnation that they presented, it didn't exist at that stage. But there are things happening. Oculus' Quest device, I don't know if anyone's aware of this, they kind of looked at the fact that people want to use an Oculus Rift, but they don't want cables. Sometimes they don't want news either. They do want VR as escapism. They just want to play games. So that's what they've done. They've developed a device that is just really for games. That's it. So, the technology is kind of happening, it's kind of developing. And I think our way of processing data is changing as well. We're moving away from seeing data as this thing that gets larger, and we have to render something and store it in order to be able to watch it back. And we are now moving towards real time and using processing power to not have to store information, for people to be able to engage with something as it is generated. And that again will be liberating. If we can get head-mounted displays with enough graphics processing power in them, we won't have to worry about what we're watching. You know, the device will just make it for us, quite literally make it in the device and present it to us. So we won't need to worry about handing it over to Google to store in their servers so that we can. Even this morning, the team Harmony VR who have set up the production downstairs in the Caribbean suite, so you can go and watch those films. One of the first things he said to us this morning is, the first solution we tried, they wanted us to upload and then download 60 gigs onto each device. And seeing that as a frustration, so we're moving away from it because we know now that we don't have to store stuff. We can process in real time and we can do things that way. And it will make it more accessible. It will definitely add to that accessibility. What it looks like in 10 years, there's no way to really tell. We're yet to see a true platform that allows us to push technology, and we're yet to see a technology that allows us to create a platform that we want. With the Ready Player One thing, isn't it? We're stuck between these two points. But whatever happens, I think in terms of journalism, there is still that we have to go back to that responsibility. How do we actually use this to present information to people? And is it about being completely open with it and just allowing people to self-submit, giving agency to the citizen, letting them pass stuff back? Or is it about taking the editorial and curatorial approach and providing people insights to things that they've kind of never seen before and never experienced before in a slightly more immersive way? And you can do it. And some of the earliest VR videos that I saw, really rough, hideous things actually, were shots of sort of 3-minute videos in the jungle in Brazil. People just setting up 360 cameras because they knew that there was some monkeys about, and it would be cool, and it was cool at the time. It was like, wow, now I get to. It's not immersive, but it's interesting. I'm in a different place. I'm seeing a new thing. Maybe we do just need to look at that. This is just another tool to take people, places and let them see.
So you do see longevity rather than effect?
Yeah, this was something that students have said this for quite. We've had at London College of Communication, VR projects have been in development for a couple of years now, so it's actually quite recent that we've kind of addressed that and built curriculum. But it is an ongoing conversation. Is this even worth it? And the truth is that there is a very specific industry, and there is a very specific set of technologies that are technological manufacturers, and when that industry starts to make content and that manufacturer starts to produce, that the concept of bad is lost. Both of those have now addressed this tech, so it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Talk a lot about sort of infrastructure, the distribution, but maybe talk a little bit more about the actual consumption of the individuals, because people tend to be able to find their news on their mobile phone devices. As I'm saying, like, talk about here kind of duration, like exploring a place, there's a very different experience to being in the middle of a riot or being on a march and being physically present. And yes, you can get a glimpse of it from being in the VR. It's not going to have the same sustained experience by being there. So what's the motivation to kind of stay in there, take the time when more people are kind of getting the information bite-sized installments, grabbing and going? Like, how do you think it fits into the sort of the user's agenda for news?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. The sense of what I think what you're saying is that people digest news extremely quickly now with the news feed, and what you were saying about the power of VR was that you could be engaged for potentially long periods of time within this particular space, and they kind of at loggerheads with each other. I think that it's a difficult one to answer. I think that if you look at video games, so if you look at the difference between Candy Crush and Red Dead Redemption, they serve different purposes, and I think that these things will potentially serve different purposes. So I think that there's space for both, and I think that I can't imagine you sitting on a train with your Google Daydream or getting bombarded with, now I'm in a war zone, now I'm in the jungle, now am I in front of the camera? Like, I can't imagine that bite-size-ness transitioning into VR. I think it serves different. Yeah, and I think that what you'll find is that if you watch something like Newsnight or you watch the Dispatches, for example, maybe things like that where they're more informed and more informed will start to move into the kind of professional production space of VR, I think.
I think there's kind of two sides to the response to what you were asking about the user, and I'll kind of use this as the closing as well because I think we're about to run out of time. But the first off is that thanks to Netflix, we are moving away from speed of interaction. We don't want lots very quickly. We want to take something that's beautiful, hold it tight, and watch it for 10 hours. We want to binge. We want to fully immerse ourselves, because that's what that is. Binge watching is immersion. It's taking a set of characters in place and staying with them from the start to the finish, and then telling everybody that you just did that. And I think that's what we're going to see, is that kind of play, is that when we provide that content.
That's about story, and that's about narrative drawing you in, whereas what we're talking about here is the space and the ability to explore and not have that.
With something like using the Unity engine, bringing 360 together to create a visualized space, the story would unfold and the viewer becomes the director. So it's a sense of agency. You can move through it and watch it unfold any way you like. You can go back and watch it again from a different perspective. You can, I mean, this camera alone, I'm worried that the perspective that this is going to present is going to be of a child and not of an adult, and that's going to affect the way, if any of you watch this back when you share it, it will affect the way you view it because of height. The other thing to consider here is that every exploration we make into VR as journalists or storytellers or games designers or whatever we are doing it as converted explorers. No one here is the native user. The native user is this big. My daughter's 5 and she uses VR more. She probably does it more than I do, actually. Most evenings she likes to spend about half an hour on a painting app on the PlayStation. Or she's got 3 different cardboards, one that she decorated herself, she's got one of my old phones, and she's got playlists on there. But the understanding the native user is something we can't even do yet because the technology is developing. So all we can do right now is continue to explore and continue to almost like line up the options of how we use this, create choice of different types of interaction, and allow those native users to come through and choose the way they address it. Just like we did with YouTube. We just put, when that platform went up, we just put loads of random things up there, and it was very naturally and very organically that it became a platform for video blogging, and it became a platform for sales as well, product sales. No one ever perceived that. We thought it was going to be news. For a little while, there was a dark period about 2009 when we thought it was just going to be people getting injured, that was the focus, but it moved away from that because of the native user, the YouTuber, that none of us even saw coming, actually. It's a whole thing that kind of grew out of itself. We kind of have to close there because we're sort of running out of time and there's another session. But thank you for all coming. These sessions are on all week. They're on a slightly different time, so you need to check the book. We'll be talking about the ethics of illusion again. We'll be talking about how to make a 360 video. We'll be talking about financial models and the process by which we can engage with this content this week as well. And the videos for this, once they're processed, will be launched through London College of Communication social media channels, but also Aesthetica social channels. We pick up videos as well, so you can watch them back there. Thank you. I'm going to leave that running, just for organic capture. And then they all got up and walked up.
Can I tap you up for that, for our social channels as well, DC Labs?
Absolutely, we'll link you in.
Okay, that's amazing, thank you.
I'll turn that.